Sometimes you just need to get it out of you.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
right?
need to get it out of you. Hey, this is Jumpscared. I'm Slimebeast, and I'm here with David King
Hello, everybody.
and Dead Pallet.
Hello.
I'm not sure if you want me to refer to you by name or not, so...
Uh, I go by either Brandon or Dead Palette. Either's fine.
Brandon J. Pallet, Esquire. So
Yes.
yeah, or tonight, I guess, we were talking about, I guess, video game creepypastas. Is that the agreed upon subject?
I suppose so. You're the
Yes.
man in charge. Why
Well,
don't you?
I don't want to force it down your throats, you know. But
Well,
with
with
I thought we were here to talk about My Little Pony.
we'll talk about your little pony later, okay?
it's a purebred, right? Like,
Yes.
okay, good.
Yes.
Because
I have painted it pink.
because
Do
you
you,
need to put that thing in shows.
do you make it wear the strap-on horn or what?
Yes. Yes.
Remember that pantomime horse
Both of
from
them.
Whimsywood? Yeah, that was actually.
Yeah, but with E3 on the horizon, the setting horizon, we
Yeah, the other
decided to
horizon.
discuss video game creepypastas and why they are so wonderful. Is that
Or
correct?
so terrible as
Oh.
the result may be.
Oh,
What are you talking about?
this is
Well,
the first I've heard of this.
what? Well, what rock have you guys been hiding under?
Well, I think that they are so terrible because there is no like exam that you have to take. There's like no bar you have to pass to write shit on the internet.
Well, that's not true. Don't you have to find the any key in the beginning? I guess I guess if you rely on someone else to set it up for you, but yeah. I don't know what is there a good is there a quality video game creepypasta? And I'll qualify that with is there a good video game creepypasta based on a real video game?
I guess that's a good point of discussion. Basically, I think the way we might want to break this one down is let's talk about the genre itself. Let's talk about haunted gaming and how it fits in the creepypasta thing. That wouldn't take too long. Maybe we could talk about a couple shining examples, a couple of really terrible exceptions, and then just work out, you know, what pros and cons basically.
Right.
This is sort of, I mean, anybody who's familiar with creepypasta probably has done their homework on haunted gaming, as it's one of the big genres of the most, dense genres of creepypasta out there, alongside, say, Lost Episodes and other cryptic media,
Right.
sort of.
I would
Well,
say
shit,
it's
you could-
probably bigger than Lost Episodes. Like more popular.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you can go to the wiki, that goddamn wiki, and there's like a whole section for just Pokemon.
Oh,
yeah, there's
like
subsections for individual
Pokemon-based
games.
creepypastas. It's like
Dead
oh, man.
Raichu. Dead Ash.
Man, that was
would be,
my.
I don't know.
Don't bring up my old username.
Dead Raichu.
Yeah.
You know, this actually raises a question. You guys know about the Nuzlocke challenge, right?
Nope.
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know about anything. This should be clear by now.
Okay, so, Pallet, you want to explain this?
No.
Okay.
Dead Pallet Town.
You're doing
by
it.
the way.
All right, fine. Basically, the idea is, whenever you catch a Pokemon, that Pokemon stays in your party, and you have to use it. You can't move it to a box. You can't do other stuff with it. If I think I'm remembering this correctly.
And then you cap out at 6.
Yeah, you cap out at 6. You can only have those 6. If they faint, I don't think you can go to Pokemon centers.
No.
And if they faint, that's it. You have to
You treat them like
remove
they're
them from your
dead.
party and delete them. It's like they've died.
And this is a procedural creepypasta?
No, but what I'm getting at here is the whole idea behind Nuzlocke is that it's an extra challenging version of Pokemon. The idea is that it's not just that you get more attached to the Pokemon. It's that it's simulating. Oh no, they just straight up die. Like once it falls in battle, it falls in battle. There's nothing you can do, and you have to get rid of it. And I find that interesting because normally it's just a challenge thing, but I almost wonder if it harkens back at all to any of the Pokemon creepypasta that exist out there. Because one of the ideas that exists in a lot of Pokemon creepypasta is permadeath, especially the what was it, Pokemon Black, the really popular one. The idea that you go around with Ghost, and Ghost is essentially killing off every other Pokemon and trainer you run across.
I would watch that series.
Because
I'm
it
Misty.
always was.
Rah. But yeah.
It always was unrealistic that it's just like, oh yeah, they just faint. Like, yeah, we just brutalized them and then they survive, though. It's okay.
Pikachu
How many
fainted at the
concussions?
sight of its own blood. But yeah.
Well, especially
think-
when you.
I think a big part of the cartridge thing is obviously there's this huge element of nostalgia in creepypasta. And the cheapest way to do that is just to like, hey, do you remember this thing from your childhood? And that's like, it's good to hit on nostalgia because it's like, oh yeah, I remember this thing and like I forgot about it. So there's like this feeling of loss, and it's a good way to like manipulate emotions. But you can't just rely on that as like your crutch, and that's
Right.
what all of these things do. Is like, okay, yes, we get it. Pokemon is a thing that's very dear and beloved to a lot of us, but what are you telling me about it? Is there something more here?
What do you think of the Lavender Town Syndrome story, though? Do you think that stands out as something different, or do you think that's pretty much just standard fare?
I think that there's something to that in like, if you're not fucking researching it, it seems like, oh yeah, that's creepy. But when you apply like the slightest scrutiny to it, it falls apart. And that's the whole point of creepypasta is like, you're putting things out there that you can't really disprove. Like, you know, just taking Whimsy Wood, for example, like, you know, this thing happened to me.
Right.
And I can't prove it to you, but you can't fucking disprove this shit. And then you're like leading all these little details in there, like, oh yeah, this thing happened and there was this dead chicken, and like all of these little things make it feel more real, but people can't disprove it.
Can I
And
just
so-
say that these discussions where people know about Whimsywood, especially, it's almost like someone coming up to you and reciting like your dream to you last night, and you're like, nah, how do these people know?
This is the kind of shit you're gonna have to deal with, Slimebeast. I'm sorry.
It's like
That was
that
just the
part
first
with the
example
dead
that came
chicken,
to my
and I'm like,
mind.
oh crap, you remember the dead chicken, Jesus.
Everybody remembers the dead chicken. It's one of the big beats of your story, you son of a bitch.
Oh man. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on Mr. Tattersome or no? But yeah, I mean,
What about attract mode? How do you feel about attract mode?
oh, Jesus Christ. I said based on real games. How dare you? I mean,
Okay, well, there's an important caveat right there, because there is a couple I want to mention that talk about fictional games,
right.
and I'm not going to use attract mode as an example. Have you guys ever heard of the creepypasta known as the theater?
Yes.
Okay,
I know
That's-
it's based. Was that not based on an actual game demo?
No, I think the game demo came out after the creepypasta.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
the thing with the game demo that I saw is it's trying to be like the creepypasta, but it's too polished. You know?
And for people who don't know about the theater, it is basically a strange, I guess, theater simulator. Is that what you would call it?
It's like it's almost like an old DOS game with really, really primitive, almost Doom-esque graphics, but there's no real character. It just describes this weird game that some people have gotten that it's
At
almost
like I think at like dollar store bin kind of deal.
yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's like it's always, I either found this at a garage sale or I found it at a dollar store of a store that
Yes.
was closing. I found it at Walmart. I found it in a dumpster. I found it under grandma's like chair. I don't know.
I was wondering where you were going to go with that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I found it under her folds, and
Ugh.
I
had trouble pulling it out of there after the stroke.
Oh.
jeez, good gracious.
That would be legit haunted gaming right there. It's possessed by grandma. Why did you take that out of me?
But yeah, to continue describing it, it's like you're just walking up, giving this ticket taker your ticket and like going in to see a movie, but you don't actually see the movie, and then it just starts over.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's like fake movie posters posted around the theater, and you're just like in the concession lobby. And the reason that I think that I don't say it's good, I would say that it's interesting, is because it's just like, why the fuck would someone make a game out of this?
Right.
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 And that's intriguing. Of like, yeah, that's weird that someone would make a game out of this.
Hmm.
But the arc to the story doesn't really go a whole lot of places.
Right. And I think that actually the reason I bring up the theater, and you actually set me up for this really well, is that the best you can expect, at least in my opinion, from a haunted gaming creepypasta, is that it's interesting. Very rarely, in my opinion, do you come across a haunted gaming story that is good. You know?
And I think that that's why the Pokemon Black thing stands out, not just because it was the first, but it's like, oh, you get the unknowns and they're spelling out, you know, whatever it was, something creepy, and that's like, oh, that's a cool little neat mechanic right there.
Yeah. Was that? Yeah, no, that's right.
So basically what I'm hearing is that your picks for best game creepypasta are Pokemon Black and the theater.
My pick would be a story that has a lot of problems, but been drowned.
I
It
see.
has a lot of problems, but it really attempted to be ambitious, and I think it kind of fell flat on its face. And then you kind of find out that the guy who makes it is like a little bit of a con artist, and you're like, ah. But it is an interesting story, and it's the progenitor of a lot of other stories that have since copied off of it and not done it as well.
Right.
Right. And I, Ben Drowned was one I read pretty early on and was like, oh wow, this is long and kind of interesting. And again, interesting, you can tell what it's going for, but you know.
You've read a terrible story, haven't you?
If I wanted to read a terrible story, I'd read Sonic.exe.
Did Sonic.exe originate the blood gushing from the eyes and the blood everywhere and the hyper-realistic everything?
No, I think that was
not the hyper realistic. It did the blood gushing.
that was Squidward Suicide more.
Yeah.
Aha.
That did the hyper realistic thing.
Right, right.
That's a
Everybody in the
topic
audience
for-
turned hyper-realistic, yeah.
That's a topic for another time, but when you
Yes.
think about it, Lost Episodes and Haunted Gaming have a lot in common, just in terms of like, it's like you started to say earlier, Brandon, about the nature of it being, here's the hook. Remember that innocent thing from your childhood? Here it is, all distorted.
And
And fucked up.
what's even worse is when they take something that's fucked up from your childhood and like, look how much more fucked up I made it. And so it's like, here's this lost episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and it's just like, no, the show was already creepy. What are you doing? You take
Right.
something innocent and fuck it up. Huh.
Right.
You never see creepypastas about, like, Doom.
No.
There was a different demon that wasn't there before. Ooh, spooky, yeah.
Actually, there is another good, another interesting, at least in effect, gaming pasta that just sprang to my mind, and I think you can vouch for this one, DP. It's I always forget the name of it. It's the one that's a mod for Morrowind.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking. It's like a series of letters and numbers. It's
Yeah.
like some weird file name. Yeah.
It's a really interesting one. I kind of like, again, for me, the more successful haunted gaming ones are the ones that are really cryptic and weird and don't make much sense. Like, again, I chose the theater because it's like you said, why would anybody actually make this? You know?
Right, exactly. It reminds me a lot, and this might be diverging a little bit, but I worked in a grocery store for exactly one day, and
This sounds like a good story.
yeah,
Thinking
I
about
mean,
popcorn.
this is borderline creepy, but not really creepy. They had me sit down at a computer and run through a quote-unquote game that would teach me some specifics about the job,
Oh.
including catching shoplifters, different things like that you wouldn't expect really were my forte as a
Okay.
grunt working in the retrieving carts outside and everything.
Yeah.
Live action people in 3D environments with the things coming up of what choice you were supposed to do. Like it would say, do you do this, do you do that, or do you do this? And, so of course you just kind of fly through that because you can guess what they want to hear, stuff like that. And,
Right.
the cheesiest person as, like, this shoplifter, like the guy with the pencil-thin mustache and the big overcoat, looking to his left and right sneakily as he puts a ham under his coat, like, ridiculous. But the
Right.
weirdest thing about that was, and this is the part where sort of creepy, sort of not creepy, I came in, that was a day when I wasn't working. They said, come in and you have to take this orientation. I did that. Came in the next day, to work at the beginning of the day. Same exact manager takes me into the room, sits me down at the computer, gives me the same exact spiel, and has me play the same exact game again.
What?
Yeah. Like he had not remembered he had me do it. And
Oh, wow.
me being on the clock, I said, okay, and I played through it again. But I mean, that could be, I don't know, that's... When you talked about the theater, it reminded me of that thing almost like a instructional game for like a ticket taker or something, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's never really an explanation given, and I like that it's more of a description and less about an actual person being involved, which is usually, for a lot of haunted gaming I've seen, it's usually like, it's like we're saying, I found XYZ at a weird place game, and it reminded me of my childhood, so I popped it into my system and turned it on, and everything was great except for weird glitches, and then it progressively gets worse.
Right.
I've basically described every haunted game.
And you can find, I hate to say this,
I couldn't leave because I was glued. Some force had me glued to the
Yes.
system or something like that.
why don't you put the controller down? Well, let's see. I couldn't. Yeah, that's the explanation. But I hate to bring this up, but I Hate You, the creepypasta. I don't know if you guys have both read that.
I've actually heard people read it like, oh, look at this bad creepypasta
Yes.
I found.
Oh
Oh my god.
It has. I basically tried to put in and this is early in my creepypasta writing. I tried to put in as many like tropes from gaming pastas as I could, but unfortunately, I could have done a lot more. But it was like, as I said early on, the hyper realisticness, the excessive blood, the everything we're talking about. All these things keep triggering in the back of my mind. Like, yeah, I remember that was like so funny to me, and basically nobody got it, and that was always disappointing.
Yeah, the whole point, and I get that with I Hate You.
Yeah.
The whole point is that it is like just kind of ridiculous, and
Right.
you're not meant to take it too seriously.
And like when you were talking about permadeath in the Pokemon games, it's that line in there, and I just remember it so clearly from hearing people read it mockingly, is like, if Mario died this time, would it be permanent? It's like, no, how would that be possible? But I don't know.
Well, the interesting thing too is you even set it up. You say it like, I'm not even really describing a haunted game. This is just something Nintendo put in there.
Yeah, it was purposeful.
Why?
It's super, super, super real. You can trust me, guys.
Trust
I
me.
mean,
I have screenshots.
Yeah.
I can't afford the capture card, but it's real.
I have screenshots with glaring errors in them of obvious photoshopping.
Right. Now, here's a thought, and I feel like we kind of stole. I don't know if this actually happened. I feel like we kind of stole your thunder a bit about Ben Drowned there.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because that's a huge fucking subject. Because like, it became this whole ARG thing, and I don't think it was intended to be that at first.
No.
But the creator saw it like, oh shit, this is getting attention. How can I like build this up? And it like turned into an interesting mechanic of like, okay, we got to do all this stuff and like posting videos of like playing the Song of Time will have like this effect on the ARG and like all of this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then it just like tapered the fuck off, and like the guy who did it broke kayfabe and like started talking to his fans like a person instead of like being in character, and I think that took away from it too, because up until that point, he was like never acknowledging that what he was doing was this whole thing.
Right.
And I thought that that was interesting. And then there was like all this cryptic stuff that you had to interpret. And that was interesting. But I think that you do have to ask yourself, okay, why is he getting so deep into this? Why is he, you know, and
Because it's real.
They kind of have an answer for that if you've read the story, but not really. And
Yeah.
it does do a nice job of deceiving you at parts where, like, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but I'm guessing most people have. There's like a part where there's a reveal of like, oh, it wasn't me all along, it was something else. And that's interesting. But the context of all of these other stories have really brought it down too. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, this person's full of shit, this person's full of shit, this person's pretty damn good at what they're doing, but they're obviously also full of shit.
Well, I mean, if you talk about gaming creepypastas, people cite as, like, I would, this is what I've heard. People always cite Sonic.exe and Ben Drowned. So, I mean, you have, like,
you have the
split
both
there.
ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah,
You've got, like, one of the
exactly.
best, and you've got one of the worst.
Right. So, I mean, Ben Drowned, is... for any flaws it has and different things like that, it's pretty much at the peak of the gaming creepypasta genre, I guess.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and it is kind of the one, like you said, it is kind of the one that helped sort of launch it into a really popular space of like, oh my God, it's really, really stinkingly easy to write and really, really easy to do wrong as well, because it's not, and itself, a very good idea.
Well,
I
all of
think
this is making me feel pretty inadequate, because I was going to say Mr. Mix.
Mr.
Yeah, oh
Mix.
yeah, I know about
I
that.
mean, it's very short and concise and everything, but, I don't know, for anybody who knows any of my stuff, I guess, I like the iconic character stuff, and I think Mr. Mix, in and of itself, is an interesting video game character, video game idea, or, I can't think of the right term, but like a fabrication of a video game character, like a mock character. Like, you could see that as, an old, gaming character before they realized, well, everything has to be so slick and everything. It could just be a chef,
Right.
It could be a plumber. It could be, and
You
to make it a
guys are-
typing game, I think it's, that was really a way to go with it. Is it's not like I found this really cool platformer, or I found this shooting game that was ultra violent. Here's a typing game, and that almost lends like a little bit of a credibility to it. Because I remember,
definitely.
using Typing Wizard, and it's like, why is a wizard teaching typing? Why is a chef teaching typing? It's just what people did.
Yeah, exactly. There's just that weird sensibility of older games,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a weird sidetrack, but my computer teacher in elementary school actually did a complete rehaul of Doom, and it was like clowns in wheelchairs throwing pies at each other. This is totally fucking real. Okay, so he did a complete rehaul. That way his kids could play Doom and get away with it.
Oh.
Because he was just like, oh my God, this is a really cool game, and I'm sure kids would love it, but they can't play it. So I'm just going to and for whatever reason, he's just like, yeah, we're going to make it clowns in wheelchairs throwing pies at each other.
my
That
God.
sounds to me like a very specific fetish.
Yes.
It's kind
It's
of
like, okay.
It's kind
Okay,
of
I want you to put this snorkel on and dress up as Hitler and throw Jello at my balls. That's really going to do it for me.
And I want you to shout 9999.
shouted at least 9 times.
Yeah, there you go.
But if Mixed Mix isn't convincing, it is at least charming. And
Yeah, I
think
mean,
that
the
for
whole
the
thing where
early
it says, and then
creepypastas-
hackers. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, and for early creepypastas, sometimes when people were really starting to get creative and break away from the micropastas, the portraits and that kind of stuff, when they started bringing in this mixed kind of stuff, charming was their key goal. I think is make this memorable
Right.
Yeah.
as a creepy story.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
You,
it
you
has some of the tropes of, they do that thing which pretty much every gaming pasta does, or every Lost Episode thing does, where they say, on level 2, there was absolutely no music or sound. Like in this part of the Lost Episode, everything was silent for 10 minutes. In this, game, there was no sound when Mario jumped, or what.
yeah, yeah.
There's an
Which
absence of sound, but, I don't
it,
know.
it worked. It worked for
Yeah.
what's it called? Dead Bard, I think,
Mm,
because it was like, okay, well, this is like, a shitty like backdoor episode,
right.
and like that is just unsettling, and it's like believable in that, but like, okay, they made this game and they just didn't put any music in. Like, no, they would like make a 5-second MIDI and loop the shit out of it.
I think it would be really unsettling if you played a game and it just said, the game on level 2 for some reason is Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. I'm sure they didn't have the right licensing for that, so I don't know why it's there.
What
Yeah.
about those creepypasta where they talk about the game having creepy music like that seems out of place, but it's from another game? You ever hear like Sonic.exe is guilty of this. They talk about like it had music from Earthbound in this one part, and that immediately damages any credibility. Not that it had credibility to begin with, but come on.
I didn't even notice that one, and that appears in multiple pastas, eh?
It does.
Wow.
I've noticed it. It's reoccurring. Like, but just so you know how creepy this part is, it played this music from this game, which A is out of place and B is creepy music or something.
Well, something we haven't touched on is the NES Godzilla creepypasta, which
I was
does
waiting
that
for
with
you to bring
characters,
that up.
essentially.
Does
Says,
it?
and even though this character wasn't in the game, there they were. There
But
was the
for
character from a movie that came out later,
but for some reason, but for certain reasons, I can accept that
Oh, yeah.
because at least it's
I'll,
sticking with the same genre. Like it's sticking with the Godzilla franchise.
I'll tell you exactly why you're accepting that. Uh, Remember that Pod Racer game? No, not Pod Racer. The Rebel game, the where you play as like it's a Star Wars game where you do like spaceships and blow shit up, right?
Oh, Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron for the N64. They fucking hid the design for the Episode 1 ship, like the yellow one. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, you can
The
unlock it with
Starfighter
a
thing.
code.
You can unlock it with a code, and the game came out before the movie, and it just like laid there on the ROM for like a year, and no
Jeez.
one knew about it because back in those days you couldn't, you didn't have the development tools to like crack into that shit and like find out what all is there.
So as
You-
it turns
so-
out, NES Godzilla creepypasta, fully legit.
Completely possible,
including the demon that lives in the cartridge.
And your dead
And, like-
girlfriend, who's an angel, but yes.
there's also another thing along those lines. Remember the picture thing that you could get for your Game Boy?
Oh, Game Boy camera.
Yeah, like where you could like take a picture and like print off little pictures on your Game Boy, and it's like, why the fuck would I ever do this? But okay. On the ROM for that, for some reason, there was just like a hidden image of this famous like Latin American like standoff, like where people were like raiding a drug cartel or something. I can't remember the story exactly. It was just like
Jeez.
this weird fucking out of place image from like a news story, and like no, like for some reason someone just thought it was funny to put that on there, and you can't explain that. But it's like it just gives you like, that's weird.
Where
Like,
do you think
makes you feel a
Nintendo
little
got its
weird.
funding to start with?
Yeah.
South American drug cartels.
Yep.
I mean, Nintendo is the Illuminati, right?
It's a me. Where's my money?
I mean, look at the Triforce. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah. Legend of Zelda 3 confirmed.
Huh?
But yeah.
But
Where the fuck were we?
we were talking about we
I
started
got
to
us
talk
off
about
track.
Godzilla, the
There we
Godzilla
go.
creepypasta. You want to tell people about the Godzilla creepypasta there, Slimebeast? Just
The
in
NES
case they don't
Godzilla
know.
creepypasta. The the NES Godzilla creepypasta was written, I believe, by Cosby Daff, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Oh,
Uh,
did he wrote Normal Porn for Normal People, didn't he?
Yep. And it's basically
did?
about a Nintendo game, a Nintendo version of a Godzilla game that is haunted by an evil, I guess, entity called Red.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out that the evil entity has connections to his past and to his life and to this girl that he knew. I don't know if I should say actually girlfriend. I don't think that's expressly stated, but
it was a girl he had feelings for, clearly.
Yeah. And then I guess it's early on in the story, so it's not like it would be a spoiler, but I could just say she ran in front of a Mack truck, and that was...
She killed herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, haunted game occurred. With
It's
extra characters and levels, and lots and lots and lots of screenshots, which are very well made.
I think that's honestly, the best thing about the story is the screenshots. That makes it fun.
Definitely.
Still the best. 1973.
Yes! Oh, man, I can't believe I forgot that.
That's one of my favorite things about it, is honestly just the weird stuff that has no explanation, it's never given an explanation, and it's not even scary, it's just kind of goofy.
Right.
Solomon.
Right. Still the
Whenever
best,
he wins, still the best, 1973.
And maybe that has some meaning we don't know. I mean, he says that it doesn't relate to anything, but, for all we know...
It feels like it does.
Yeah. It does. That's the important thing.
Right.
And it's interesting because... on my own podcast, Undercooked Analysis, Dead Palette and I have discussed normal porn for normal people, which is Cosby Daft's other story. Apparently,
Right.
I didn't actually know this. And if
yeah,
that's,
I listened to that. Yeah.
Thank you. And this is for everybody else. This is my shameless plug.
Yeah, but I had to get my points.
No, I thank you. but that being said, the two stories feel pretty radically different.
But what we just mentioned is similar. It's like, okay, it feels real, and it's like, why the fuck would you mention this? And normal porn for normal people has a lot of like, what does this mean? What the fuck? Like, you're just trying to like divine the tea leaves here of like, okay, why would this person be wearing a chicken mask and masturbating in the background? It's like, okay, that's weird. It doesn't mean anything.
Yes,
but it lends an air of credibility to it.
There is
of like
there is
like,
a part
okay.
in the... I believe isn't there a part in one of the porn videos where there's like a freeze frame and the caption comes up, "Still the breast, 1970 something."
Oh my. Yeah, I remember that part, actually. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, and now that I've completely shat on what you're saying, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. we're just commiserating here.
Yeah, so both stories, same author.
Yep, that's basically the point I was going to make, and that they feel different, but they also there are similarities. I mean, still the best. and my actually
in conclusion, Brazil is a land of contrast. Thank you.
And not all bad drug deals.
No.
Some of them are good. But, yeah, I mean, Sonic.exe, I guess, was the Tails... Is Tails Doll like a follow-up to that? And
the
all
Tails
those
doll went...
Sally.exe and...
I don't know about those.
I don't think I remember anything about Sonic's.exe. I do remember Tails Doll. Because for some reason, I don't know why, I found it a little bit charming. I don't think it's a good story at all, but I found it charming.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, okay, this is a weird thing to keep going on and on about, and anyone who's going on and on about something weird, I'm down for.
You're that guy at the party that wants to talk to the person no one wants to talk to?
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking of like legacies of gaming pastas, and we talked about, how some of them had, like Ben Drowned had a certain legacy, and I guess Sonic.exe has a legacy of probably stories that are probably just in the similar vein. They're not really even departures or downward spiral or anything like that.
Well, can we talk about? I mean, since we're talking about influential haunted gaming pastas, let's talk about Sonic.exe for a little bit. Even though I think we can all agree here that it's not good.
Yeah, I don't like to be hard on people, but yeah.
Like objectively, like if you like it, more power to you. I mean, you just did. Earlier today, I just listened to Slimebeast do a little. What would you call it? A little bit of a...
Mental breakdown, is that?
Yeah, something like that. Well, you would have to say Jeff the Killer doesn't suck.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, there is a certain level on which he doesn't suck, but...
A certain level. That's true.
Yeah. But there's
I will
so
agree
maybe
with you
there's a
there.
certain level where Sonic.exe doesn't suck.
Maybe.
I,
And David will now tell us.
I'm going to disagree with you here, Slimebeast. There, you gotta. I think a big problem with why we're getting so many shitty stories out there is because there's no sharks in the water that are being assholes. And so even if it means that people come to me and like are like, okay, I don't understand this story. This isn't scary or whatever. And whatever that might hurt my feelings. It's one better for me as an author and as a content producer, and two, it's like high. It's giving us a higher standard of like, okay, we're asking more out of this. So
Right.
even right now, we're being devil advocates and like, okay, Mixer Mix isn't the best, no, but it's charming and
Well, that's the
you
thing.
know,
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
when I talk about, Jeff the Killer doesn't suck, quote unquote, or, maybe there's some redeeming things about Sonic.exe, it's like, all of the negatives, let's take those as a given. And, is there some glimmer of hope in the darkness? You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily, nobody say anything bad about this, it's great, more power to people who like it, and if you don't like it, just be quiet. But, it's just a matter of,
Well,
you know,
I would say if you don't like it, go ahead and say you don't like it, but you don't
Right.
have to like shove it down people's throats. Unless, of
Exactly.
course, you run a podcast like me, and then you say actively all the time, Jeff the Killer fucking sucks.
oh. But I just look at it this way, a lot, and this is sort of a tangent, I guess, but we'll bring it back to Sonic.exe.
Yeah, we
A
will.
lot of the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies suck. But do Freddy and Jason suck objectively? And, with all the design genius that went into Jason Voorhees of finding a hockey mask in the prop department on the day and saying, this is what it'll wear. I mean, it's sort of like, yes, Jeff the Killer is designed in a certain way that, people find distasteful based on, who it's targeting and how and, what the emotion it's supposed to elicit is, like, oh, he's so
That-
cool
that's-
and tortured. But, is that really
that's
any
not.
worse than a lot of the 80s slashers we had that we love, I don't know.
Oh, absolutely not. But I've never been a huge fan of 80s slashers. But I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with Jeff the Killer because of its target demographic. I just want to talk to that target demographic and tell them that you can demand more out of your Mary Sue.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it
mean,
might be a gateway
my-
drug, too. I don't know.
Well, it's like I said, my problem isn't necessarily with the story itself. It's the way the story has been received, It's the fan base that a fan base can get on my nerves. Any fan base can get on my nerves depending on just how much they praise a thing to high heaven, whether it deserves it or not. And the thing is, with Jeff the Killer, I when I first read it, I'm like, well, this isn't a very good story, but like, in my opinion, but like, it can't possibly be that popular. And then I see Jeff Senpai.
Right.
Oh, he's so. It's people applying a level of nuance and I guess skill and like just a narrative quality. It's like the same reason I have a problem with the Twilight books or 50 Shades of Grey. People
Right,
saying this
exactly.
is the greatest thing ever. This is true literature. Or talking about how amazing this is and what it is. And it's like, well, if you like it, that's great. But you got to understand, things like Jeff the Killer, things like Twilight, things like that, they're junk food.
Right.
They're sweet and they give you what you want, but are they really, truly fulfilling you?
And
No.
I would say that Edward Cullen does suck. Beyond the story and everything. But anyway. But
the
like,
reason we-
as in
the-
with Sonic.exe.
Right, we're bringing it back. So the reason we touch on that is because it's a very similar case with Sonic.exe. Enormously popular. I don't quite understand why.
I know why.
Tell us why. Tell us why.
It's furry / gore fetish.
Not like
Maybe-
Sonic fans didn't weird me out anyway. No, I'm sorry. I'm alienating people quickly. How to lose
it's
friends
pro-
and alienate people.
It's probably because Sonic induces the inability to be social and makes you awkward. it just objectively does. It's the first video game I ever played, and thank God I got out before it got too bad. I was only messed up through elementary school. At middle school, I started talking to people again, and I got over it. But
Did you
it
make
could
it
have
to
been very
Knuckles or no?
crippling.
The first Sonic game I ever played was actually Sonic 3. So
Really? For
yeah,
me, it was no. I guess it was 1 because it came with the Genesis. But
yeah, no, I didn't have a Genesis. I had the first game system I ever had was a Game Boy Pocket.
hmm.
My parents didn't buy me video games, and then later I got an N64. But a neighbor who lived down the street, yeah, I screamed like that too. That was actually me in my youth.
I thought I recognized you.
Yeah, right. I still have the same high squeaky voice. So,
Aw.
but that was a good Christmas. But the kid who lived down the street from me, a friend of mine, he had a Sega Genesis, and so he only really had 2 games for it. He had Vector Man and he had Sonic 3.
Oh,
And
fucking Vector Man. Where's the shitty creepypasta about that?
I don't know. Does anybody even remember Vector Man?
I do, man.
Barely. He
I mean,
has
I
no
know you
face and
would.
wears a suit, right?
Yes, that one. I'm sorry, I keep laughing like Muttley. Actually, you have a better Muttley laugh than I do.
Well, I've been sick, but
All I'm saying is that Vector Man and Sonic 3. So Sonic 3 was my first exposure to Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think it was decent because I go back and play the other one and goes, oh, those are good, but there was something about Sonic 3 and the fact that there was Knuckles, and Knuckles was a dick, and it was fun. I like Sonic 3. That's all I'm saying. So let's talk. I guess let's go back to Sonic.exe.
well,
So
I mean, as I said, I think. No, wait, I told this to someone else. I think I may have also told you. Did I tell you about part of the way that Five Nights at Freddy's became popular?
No.
no.
Okay.
Although
One
we
of the
have
reasons-
we all have our thoughts, I imagine, on that, but that's not haunted gaming.
Well,
so
I mean,
much.
this is going to draw back to Sonic.exe,
Okay,
like the
go-
big Jeff the Killer tangent.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the reasons that Five Nights at Freddy's became as popular as it is that early on it was advertised on furry porn sites. And that is
real?
part of the reason there is a huge group of people that are just after Chica's booty. And I'm not even kidding. It was advertised on, I think, Fur Affinity is one of them. I'm not sure. Fur Affinity? I don't know. But, yeah, how do you like me pretending I haven't been there? But, yeah, so I think that is part of, and I actually haven't. Just for people listening.
Research.
But he
research.
does frequent Bad Dragon.
Oh, I don't even want to know. I know what dragon dildos are, so I can only assume. But,
Oh.
it draws back to Sonic.exe in that I wonder, I've seen some of the fan games that people have made about Sonic.exe, and it has a lot of, these cute animals and these cute girl animals like Sally and all his friends, just getting really horribly gored and having the big pictures on the screen of them gored, and I can't help but wonder if there is some crossover. This is Illuminati type stuff.
Oh,
is
boy.
some crossover with the furry community and specifically like gore fetishists. I don't know.
I don't think that that's a crazy thing to assert because when you look at something like Sonic, it does have these really dynamic personalities. And it's something that you're usually introduced to at an early age. And so you're dealing with these characters that you kind of become attracted to their personalities.
Yeah, for
and
lack
so,
of a better word, they're way past cool.
and so you're like, you get out there and you like see all these like ridiculous fucking fan fictions of clearly written by people young enough to like not fully understand how sex works.
And
it's
so
just
the
like
penis and the
and
butt.
it's like and so I don't know if you've ever read these things, but they're just like out there with bad grammar. It's just like, and so Sonic started peeing in Sally and like all of this weird shit. And so like,
gotta go fast.
Oh God. And so like, this could be like written by someone who has these weird deviant fantasies that doesn't fully understand yet.
Well,
And so
oh,
if they're doing this anonymously, they're not going to hold back with like, yeah, I want to see like Amy get ripped apart and maybe this just speaks to like a weird tween demographic, very like under the radar. You know what I mean?
it reminds me a lot of Cupcakes.
Yes.
Oh, that. I feel like we could put a subject on that in a different episode entirely, but keep going.
Well,
Like,
let's put that in a Ziploc baggie and say stay tuned next time for the entire Cupcakes episode.
oh dear God. Okay, what have I done? Never mind.
Or
Talk
check
about
out
cupcakes.
Midnight Marinara for their radio drama of Cupcakes.
The sad thing is, I know enough people who do who have done fan voices for that community that I could probably get a pretty convincing Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie.
Wow.
Just get fucking Greg to do it from Flame Philosophy.
Well, his version of Cupcakes is the best version of Cupcakes, really. So
Where Pinky is like singing the Power Rangers theme to Rainbow Dash.
yeah,
Okay.
in a Russian accent.
Somebody will
Yeah.
have to link that to me because
Oh my
It's
gosh.
fucking wonderful.
Flim
man.
Flam. For those of you who don't know, Flim Flam philosophy. It is incredibly self-aware, and even if you're someone who thinks the whole pony thing is a massive joke, it's worth looking
So
up.
does he.
Apparently, so does he. It's kind of true. I mean, he reads. Oh, this turned into an advertisement for another channel. Basically,
That's all right.
it's fun. Check it out.
You're going to both be advertising your channels at the end, and I'll link in the description. So,
Of course we are.
advertising, yay!
Yay!
It reminds me of, and this is again another tangent, but it sort of applies. I remember reading back in like the 90s or early 2000s, this random ass story on the internet that somebody had posted somewhere, and it was like one of those things you'd never come across again in a million years. If I wasn't looking for anything, it just was randomly found in some dark reach of the internet. Just a story about a teenage girl going to the mall and not realizing it was condemned, which explained to me how that happens, and going around the mall wondering where everybody is as the mall is demolished. And the most outlandish gore and outlandish scenarios, she's drinking a can of soda that she's gotten from a vending machine in this abandoned mall. And the wrecking ball comes through the wall and hits the end of the soda can and puts it down her throat. All different stuff like this. And that was back then. I was like, no idea what to make of this. This, I believe, probably was before there was a term creepypasta. Before this was like a commonplace thing. And it was just like, all the way back then, people were writing stories about vaguely fetishy, gore and torture of mostly female characters. And it just, I don't know, something about Sonic.exe, something about Cupcakes always brings me right back to that moment where it's like, I look back and I say, this is where, that has all come now, is that, essentially that has become popular, and I don't know necessarily the reasoning behind the stories. I'm not going to guess the creator's intent and say they actually were fetish material, but it just is kind of an interesting thing to look back and say, here's this thing that was under a rock on someone's private page and probably eventually got deleted and is gone forever. And
that
now
they're probably embarrassed about.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's like an international multi-language translated across the globe. Projected into space on Wi-Fi beams,
Jeez.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's kind of an interesting culmination of where all that has come. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, I certainly look at some of the stuff that I've written, and there is this like weird fetishistic nature to some creepypastas, and I think that it's often done by people who don't have the skill to like really pull it off. But I think it's underutilized, and I think maybe that's why they're latching onto it. It's like, oh, here's some more of this weird shit, and it's like, it's not necessarily like masturbation material, but it is fetishistic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, exploiting weird sexual feelings that you can't really put into a category is interesting.
Are we
For sure.
actually kind of close to cracking the reason that Lost Episode and video game creepypastas are so popular?
We might be. We might be. I feel like this is now an episode of MythBusters.
I think that it has more to do with what the subject we're talking about now has more to do with the gory stuff, not necessarily the lost episode.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And haunted cartridge kind of deal.
Yeah,
It
that
is one of the-
crosses
it is-
genres. Yeah.
It is one of those things where a more amateurish aspect of writing is how do you make a thing scary or disturbing? Throw lots of gore into it. A lot of cheap gaming creepypasta does do that in order to give shock value. This is also true of Lost Episodes. Suddenly blood, suddenly gore, suddenly unexpected this and that.
Suddenly
Yes?
Seymour.
Come in. Someone's
Suddenly
knocking on
Susan.
my door. Hello.
Oh, suddenly an intruder.
Yes. What's up?
Hide your kids,
fine.
hide your wife.
What do we do if he's actually? This is an actual
Are you-
home invasion.
It might be an actual home invasion. It's just my roommate. Emma, you want to say hi?
You guys want to buy some drugs?
What's your favorite video game creepypasta?
Say hi.
Emma, what's your favorite video game creepypasta? I'm on headphones, so she can.
Ben Drowned, of course.
Oh,
Like,
Oh, there you go.
two votes for Ben Drowned.
that's just me.
Cool. Well, you're in a good camp here because we all kind of agree that Ben
Good, because
Drowned
if
is.
you don't fucking like it, you piece.
I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah. Alright. Is 8 million subscriber video?
So
I haven't seen it
yeah. This has been Jumpscared.
Oh,
My name is Slimebeast. My guests are David and Brandon, aka Dead Palette. Why don't you guys plug your channels?
all right. I guess I'll go first.
Mr. Bossy, okay.
That's me. Well, excuse me, princess.
Oh.
Well, I run the Midnight Marinera podcast. We take I almost said video games.
We take
we
video
take-
games and
It's
we
a Let's Play channel.
It might turn that way at some point if I don't start getting more.
Let's Players are garbage. Don't do that.
No. Well, even so, the market is so saturated with. Anyway, but while you're at it, why don't you check out Slimebeast's Tormental channel where he plays video games?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
Ooh. So
basically,
that's your plug now. Dead.
I will kill you. No, I will kill you. But that comes later. First of all, Midnight Marinera is a bi-monthly podcast. We turn creepypasta, good ones that we find that are worthy of it, into radio plays and audio dramas. So we don't just do narration. We actually adapt them into full-on, fully cast and fully realized audio dramas. I also run the Undercooked Analysis podcast, where these two have been guests on before, where we just take a completely off-the-cuff look at various creepypasta, usually doing a cold read, go back and forth, talk about them. If you like that kind of thing, you can find us on YouTube, on the Benview Network, benviewnetwork.com/Midnight Marinera. And I'm pretty much the only person with the Midnight Marinera moniker, so if you just search it on the internet, you'll find me.
That's right. And we also have with us Dead Palette, who has things too. Like,
Do I? Oh, I have a channel. You can just go to YouTube and type in Dead Palette, and I'm sure you'll find it. I just put up a video called Free Spirit. It's weird and sexual in its own way, so there's that.
and if you'd like a free spirit, subscribe to both these guys, subscribe to this channel, and comment below with who you thought made the best points, or which video game creepypasta you think is the best. In fact, which one do you think is the worst?
Were there any we didn't touch on that you wish we had? Any unknowns that we might want to look at in the future if this discussion ever comes up again? Yeah, feel free to put those below too.
That's right.
We welcome any and all feedback. We are explorers, entrepreneurs. We love to look into the abyss of creepypasta and smell the rotten stench of old marinara sauce floating back up.
Yeah.